Hi, my name is Crispina French, and promoting creative textile reuse is my jam. I'm an OG textile alchemist, worked my way through art school making ragamuffins from thrift store sweaters way back in the 1980s. That college side hustle grew into a full-fledged business, and here I am today to show you how to do it too. Stick around for all the things helping to navigate both the chaotic and dreamy chapters of building your profitable textile upcycling business. We'll talk material sourcing, business savvy, product development, marketing, and self-care. Gloss over the hard parts? Not here. Experience, lessons, and know-how. Deep dive into the struggles, wins, and rewards of running your sustainable textile upcycling business. Think of this as your favorite craft class mixed with environmental business school. Are you ready to be inspired, energized, and supported? This is the Rags to Riches Textile Upcycling Podcast. Are you a textile-centric crafter who loves vintage yardage, unusual fabrics, notions, and sewing tools and tutorials? Maybe you're a sewing teacher in need of cool and inexpensive cloth for students. Whether sewing high-end bespoke couture or experimenting with new textile making processes, swansonsfabrics.com, located in the heart of Turners Falls, Massachusetts, has just what you need. You can shop online or at the very well-organized and jam-packed store. Swanson's Fabrics is a thrift shop of fabric, notions, and textile tools. It's a community repurposing the leftover collections of home sewers, addressing the reality that we have enough fabric and craft supplies for generations, stored right in our very own attics and closets. Swanson's makes it very easy to pass on an excessive fabric stash and find inspirational treasure for sewing projects. Additionally, Catherine Swanson hosts an online group for entrepreneurs interested in using her business model for fabric thrift stores in their communities. Find Swanson Fabrics at swansonfabrics.com and on TikTok and Instagram. Hello out there. I am so excited to introduce you to a business slash not-for-profit organization slash think tank of amazing women that is called Around the World in 80 Fabrics. There are actually 3 people involved with this organization, and I hear Carol, one of them, is on expedition at the moment. So we are lucky here today to introduce you to Tierney and to Lesli Robertson, who work together on this really, it's kind of cutting edge stuff, you guys. I'm really excited to share you with my audience. So tell us, Lesli and Tierney are here. They live Carmel, California and Texas. Am I right?
Yeah.
Okay, cool. So it might be a little hard to differentiate voices that we haven't met yet. So Lesli, just take a minute and introduce yourself.
Okay, perfect. So I'm Lesli Robertson, Outreach Director with Around the World in 80 Fabrics. And I joined last year this amazing project that I'm excited about. My background is actually in textiles. I taught for about 15 years at the University of North Texas in all types of textile design and art, as well as engagement programming. So I have a background in education, but also in making. I've spent a lot of time working with artisan groups across the globe and have garnered a huge appreciation for anything textile related, and especially natural materials. And so when I was contacted by an intern from Around the World in 80 Fabrics last year about some of my research on Ugandan bark cloth, I said, so I can definitely send you bark cloth, but can I also ask about the project and somehow stick my foot in there and get in there and work with you all on it? Because it just the concept and the interdisciplinary part of it just fascinated me. And so with my background in textiles, I just felt like it was a great complement to what Tierney and Carol brought as founders for the project. So I'll turn it over to Tierney if that works.
Yeah, that sounds great. Thanks for that. That's really helpful. So Tierney, yes, nice to meet you. And I'm really excited to learn more about your background too.
Yeah, no, wonderful to be here. Thanks for the invite. My name is Tierney Teese. I'm calling in from California, Carmel, California. And this project actually came from I'm a marine biologist by training and by career, and kept seeing more and more of my study sites filling up with plastic and my study animals being entangled and eating plastic. And this rather jarring epiphany that 35% of ocean microfiber plastics comes from our clothing, and that we're wrapping ourselves in petroleum-based clothing, 60% of which is fossil fuel based, was a sobering realization. And when I happened to be coaching a middle school team that was doing a National Geographic competition to tackle real world problems, one of those being plastic pollution. And I was coaching them, and we decided as a group to look at non-petroleum based fabrics. And to display that, we wanted to make a quilt. So we went to secondhand stores, and we got all sorts of amazing silks and linens and cottons. One of the benefits of living in Carmel, you got some great consignment and secondhand stores. And we put together this beautiful quilt, which turned out to be a tremendously powerful teaching vehicle and a lovely thing in itself. And that project ended. The kids learned a lot, and they went on, but I was down the wormhole when it came to looking at alternatives to petroleum-based clothing and fabrics on the whole. So I've worked with National Geographic for 20 some odd years, and that's given me the opportunity to go to many, many countries and meet many different cultures, all of which have textile traditions. And through that, I've seen that this is such a deep part of humanity, is our relationship with cloth and what we wrap ourselves in from, the moment of birth onward.
Yeah.
And it's just that, and it touches every aspect of our lives as well as the environment. So as a marine conservationist, I found that fashion was really a Trojan horse for every single environmental issue. And I could reach audiences far beyond what I was normally reaching in my marine conservation work. So
that is so cool, because honestly, I feel exactly the same way. It's interesting. Textiles is kind of like it's like, I call it the gateway, recycling, like the gateway of awareness, right? Like we all are wrapped in textiles from the day we were born to literally the day we die. And we have, because of that, I feel like we have a real connection to textiles, like physical connection. And it gives us the capacity and the ability to make change happen, right? Like we can change how we consume textiles because we do consume textiles. So it's so cool. And I'm so excited to just learn more about your project. So one of the things that I also feel pertains to this conversation is that, when people can come into the textile, fashion, right? Like fashion textiles, they can make wiser choices with information that is shared by people like you guys. And it can also lead to other lifestyle changes that really benefit them and the planet and our kind of global community in so many different ways. So share a little bit about your 4 pillars we were talking about before we got started. I'd love to know more about that.
Yeah, so the project is we're still in hunter-gatherer mode, and we're gathering all manner of different fabrics and raw materials for our traveling museum exhibit and interactive outreach program, which is very rich. And Lesli, I'll hand it over to Lesli to talk more about that. But our 4 pillars essentially are animal-based. So they're with a raw material lens. That's what differentiates us from other textile projects. So
can I interrupt for 1 second, Tierney? So when you're talking about your 4 pillars, you're talking about 4 types of, or 4 pillars of textiles. Am I right?
Well, and let me jump in. Yeah. And so I'll jump in, because one of the things when I first joined the project was coming from a textile realm, we're used to seeing decorative fabric that has had a life to it after it was made, right? So it was intended for a use or turned into an object or decorated by the surface or dyed on the top. We're really interested in the fabric itself, right? Which is that material that can then be turned into something. If that gives the raw material, right? So the raw woven, knit, felted, whatever raw material And Tierney will talk about out of what is the 4 pillars.
Right.
Okay, thanks.
Because that's, the problem is the raw material of so many of our fabrics are petroleum based that doesn't degrade for hundreds of years and carries many other kinds of pollutants on it. So we're really interested in making the raw material as sustainable, ethical, responsibly sourced as possible, and a win-win for the environment. So with that in mind, we have 4 genres of raw materials. One being animal-based. So you think wools from sheep, yak, alpaca, muskox. Another pillar is plant-based. Think hemp, flax, which is linen, cottons, and all manner of other banana, nettle. And another is biofabricated. So harnessing the power of synthetic biology to create to have microbes create cellulosic material from agricultural feedstock or from the waste of steel mills. They have bacteria that can live off the CO2 emissions of steel mills and make a fabric from it. And then
wait. You're blowing my mind. You're going to make fabric with microbes out of waste from steel mills. I don't even know what to say. Like, I've never even heard of that. That is so flipping cool.
Well, microbes are amazing. Microbes are really the future of this planet, of our species. The more we can learn about microbes, the better off we'll be to ensure our survival on this planet.
Okay. This is amazing. So is this your background? Is this the science part coming in? The marine biology that's like part of what you're carrying into this textile project that you're working on?
Well, I'm truly fascinated by how we create these raw materials and what we can harness from the biological world to create them in the most environmentally friendly way. And this world of biofabrication and synthetic biology and designing organisms like microbes to create fabrics is there's so much potential there, and it's so exciting. And we were Carol and I, the other Carol Dunham, we presented at the Biofabricate Summit, created by Suzanne Lee in Brooklyn, New York. And if any of your listeners would like to just Google the word biofabricate, it'll bring them to that summit and they will see the future. It's really,
that is
very exciting.
I wish that you could see my jaw. It's like on the table. I've never even heard of this. You're opening my mind to something that is just, I have been trying to imagine how our future will look with the amount of waste that we generate as humans. How do we manage it? And I think you just answered that question for me.
Well, this is it's a part of the solution. Mm-hmm. There's many others, like when it comes to recycling used cotton, and there's mechanical recycling and chemical recycling, and then there's other ways of using ionic liquids to anneal fibers so that you can actually upcycle them instead of downcycle them. So there's all sorts of tools that are out there to do this, and they're getting better and more efficient all the time. But so then the last pillar of the 4 is recycling, and this idea of taking the waste or the dead stock or the pre-consumer waste, the post-consumer waste, and finding ways of upcycling it and revaluing it so that we can, do away with this concept of trash and make beauty out of trash. So that those pillars, and so we're really excited about the work that you've been doing in that whole recycling, upcycling world.
Well, let me jump in too, because I think what's wonderful about this project, and Crispina, I do the same thing that you do when Tierney brings in some of these new bio fabrics. It's because of our background in textiles and the way that we understand materials, it blows my mind all the time. And it's fabulous to work on a project that is truly interdisciplinary, where you have the perspective of Tierney as a scientist, you have the perspective of Carol as an anthropologist, and myself as a textile person, where we can take the same fabric and view it in so many different ways, but also kind of be a bridge for each other in our fields. And I think that's why it's so important in these type of projects and this type of work is to work as interdisciplinary as possible, because I still don't understand how microbes work. And I will never probably understand how they work, but I don't have to because Tierney's here. And she's the one that can help digest the information and tell us how that works. And so I just want to say, I think that's one of the very special things about Around the World is that it has ways to look at fabrics and access to fabrics and interest in fabrics that wouldn't have occurred if it was just me working on the project. And I think that's what's very, very special.
I think that that's sort of also the future, right? Like we have historically, I mean, it's funny how this has played such a big role in my business, where I had a production company and I manufactured, recycled potholder rugs and blankets and clothing and accessories and toys. And people would come into my booth or see my work and they'd say to me, "Oh my gosh, that's so cool. I bet I could make that." And I would encourage them to try, because God knows I can't recycle all this stuff. There's no way in hell I could do. My life's work is to make global impact in textile consumption, and I know that I can't do that by myself. And when I wrote a teaching book, people thought I was bonkers. Like, why are you teaching people to have a business like yours? And my response to that was, we have to share, we have to encourage, we have to nurture and support each other in our mission to find the balance in human consumption. And for me, it starts with textiles. I feel like that's a pretty safe and easy way for people to come into an awareness of our need to just bring the consumption down to a place where it's reasonable, right? And where we can actually think about there being an environmental balance. So I think that is actually just exactly what you just said about how, you have your textile background. Tierney is the scientist, Carol, the anthropologist. So there's these three kind of pieces that are working together. And I feel like when you're able to share freely, and I call it open source creativity, when I share and I try to encourage people to, try it and see and make it yours and take this idea, and you don't have to reinvent the wheel, because we've all, wheels are really cool. Please use my wheel.
Today's episode of Rags to Riches podcast is brought to you by the Stitcherhood Recycling Society, my online membership community for creative textile upcycling, recycling, and reuse entrepreneurs. Inspiration, shared experience, tutorials, business savvy, and connection to a whole posse of people who understand the passion and intricacies of running an environmentally kind, creative textile upcycling biz. Daily posts, weekly stitch hours, book recommendations, group chats, member profiles, and strong connections is what you can expect when you join Stitcherhood. Head on over to stitcherhood.crispina.eco and sign up for a free 7-day trial to see if my Stitcherhood Recycling Society is a good fit for you and your textile upcycling business.
So now this Around the World in 80 Fabrics, I love that. That is, so your 4 pillars kind of built into this globe encompassing travel / project / inquisition, I'm imagining, to just like find these fabrics, find these makers. Is that right? Like, share a little bit more about that.
Yeah, so we're within those 4 pillars, we're looking for the most compelling stories. And our goal is to elevate and celebrate the wild biodiversity and cultural diversity that are behind these myriad fabrics that are better for the planet than what we currently have. And so we are going to every corner of the globe to find the best stories and to tell those stories and to elevate the voices of the makers.
Well, I think too, part of what our goal is, even though we always are clothed and textiles and clothing have such a close connection to us, we don't realize that they're made, that hands and people are behind them, right? They just become these very blank and siloed objects. And so our goal is really to make sure that, whether it's a small maker in Uganda pounding bark cloth, or whether it's someone that's, like custom textile working in with, larger machinery to create the selvaged cotton, we want to tell the stories behind who's behind the fabric, so that as we're making decisions on what we're going to put on our body, that we might not buy 5 shirts, right, that we don't know where they came from or we can't trace them. We might decide to clothe ourselves or bring things into our home that have a very deep connection to the place and the person or a group. Tierney and I were just together this past weekend at her place, and we have a library. We have an actual collection of fabrics from. We haven't even categorized how many countries yet, but it's over 150 plus, maybe closer to 200 fabrics from, I'm looking at the sheet right now. We have fique from Colombia. We have linen from Ireland and Portugal. We have lotus from Cambodia. We have nettle from Ukraine, pineapple from the Philippines. That's just water hyacinth from the Philippines, raffia from Congo. It's mulberry bark from Samoa.
Okinawa. Mm-hmm.
Yeah. So, the banana from Okinawa. It's really exciting to see the diversity, and we haven't even gone to all the plants yet. So there's one in Indonesia that I'm getting very fascinated with as we're looking at rounding out the collection. It's called doyo from Indonesia. So I want to dig into that and learn about how that's this, plant that has long, thin leaves is processed into wearable and usable fabrics. So
tell me the name of that again. You got a little bit. The connection was a little
sorry
shaky
about
there.
that.
The name of that, yeah,
it's doyo, DOYO. So it's on our wish list of things. And that was actually through Selvage that I learned about that plant in particular. But it's just filled. The collection is filled with so many beautiful things from all across the world, and really interesting, fascinating materials, like Tierney was saying, that are biofabricated, things that you wouldn't have even imagined are possible.
How cool. Yeah. So once you have your library collected, then you have like an outreach kind of an education component. Am I right?
Yeah. So we tested that out this summer. We were invited by the Smithsonian Folklife Festival to be a part of the Earth Optimism section of the festival. And so we were there for 2 weeks every day with probably 30 to 40 of our fabrics, where we had them out displayed and had different programming around some of them, so that people could actually come in, gently touch them, see these things in person, read the stories about them. Everyone, of course, had a label and QR codes back to the source. And it became this wonderful array of fabrics that when people would come through the booth, you would see them leave thinking, I didn't know this existed. And so we partnered that, as well as other teaching tools in the booth as well, to help, with a larger discussion about the problems of the actual, some of the many things that we wear that are fossil fuel based. But that was a really exciting outreach project we did this year.
That sounds amazing. I mean, Earth optimism, there's nothing wrong with that in my book. I tell people that I'm an environmental optimist, and sometimes people are like, they can't imagine those 2 words in one sentence, never mind one thought. And I feel like it's kind of what we have to be, right? Like there's so much, I feel like optimistic and forward thought, you have to have optimism to have that thought, right? Otherwise, why bother? And I feel pretty strongly that humans are so much more powerful than we have, been able to scientifically document, that we have certainly the ability to change what, the issues are that are keeping us from living in a healthy and well-balanced environment. So yeah, Tierney, can you speak a little bit about the sort of structure of the whole project?
Yeah. It's we view it sort of as a 5-year project. We have a book that we're also writing that'll be heavily illustrated and really really celebrate visually the richness that we've been collecting across biomes and across cultures. We have a series of museum exhibits that we're putting together that will marry the old and the new, bringing together the biofabricators with the traditional and indigenous. So innovation within indigenous makers, innovation within biofabricators, and having them cross-pollinate, which hasn't happened to the as much as we know it can. We also have interactive workshops that we've been doing. Like Leslie's got a whole lineup of different workshops that will be coming online for people to sign up. Everything from felt making to bark cloth making to bioplastic making, and so between our book and our exhibits and our webpage, where you can dive into any of the fabrics and meet the makers online and see the process that you acquire these fabrics. And then another big part of it is creating a microscopic library of the fibers as well, so that you can see at the microscopic scale what gives them their functional aspects. You can't felt polyester, but you can felt wool. Why is that? Well, you look at the wool fibers and they have these scales on them. And when you irritate them enough, and then they'll start to pull together. And that's because of their microscopic fibers. And some are stronger than others, and some are warmer than others. So we'd love to empower the public with the knowledge of, and why these fabrics have these wonderful material properties, and then also give them the tools to spot the fakes, because there's a lot of greenwashing out there.
It's really an issue, right? Like, so the cool thing is that I honestly think it's been an issue for a very long time. And I think now people are, spotting the fakes, right? Mm-hmm. They're aware that, like, it doesn't matter. You can bring your clothes back to H&M, but H&M is not really doing their job as far as being gentle with planetary balance and health, and excessive consumption is just not the way we're ever going to serve our environment in a manner that's worthy of. So 5 years, you're writing a book, you're doing all these shows. How are people, like, what's the best way for people to learn about your project and be in touch with you and kind of stay in the know as far as, like, what you guys are up to?
Well, we would love for people to join our Instagram feed. It's at ATW80 Fabrics. We would love that, because we really pour our heart and soul into that. And also to look at our website, where every fabric has its own page, and we have an events page where you can follow us and the latest and greatest. We also will be creating expeditions where people can come with us in the future. So that's another aspect to get involved, but certainly the website, and it's just, ATW8 Fabrics is where you can stay up to date. Sign up to join our updates and our Instagram. We'd love for people to join our Instagram.
Cool. And we will post all of this information on our show notes pages. So if anybody's looking for information, if you're driving while you're listening to this or doing something that's hard to stop, not to worry. You can just visit the Rags to Riches Textile Upcycling Podcast website, and you'll be able to get in touch with both Tierney and Lesli and Carol, who is someone who I'd love to meet at some point in the future. And I think that the other thing that I'd like to just share a little bit about is that Selvage Magazine, you mentioned it as we were chatting, is a magazine that's produced in England, in the UK, and it's just a beautiful textile-focused publication that, if you're not familiar with it, I would encourage any listener to just check it out. You can check it out online at selvage.org. And I actually ran across Around the World in 80 Fabrics through an event that they are producing. And of course, you might be listening to this podcast in the future where the event that I'm going to reference in a moment has passed, but they run events that are super engaging and interesting to anyone who's kind of textile centric. The one that we are actually presenting at in the same event is called Wardrobe Revolution Weekend, and that is coming up October 8th and 9th, 2022. So look into that. You'll see more information about Around the World in 80 Fabrics, as well as more information about me, Crispina French, from my business is called Crispina. That's what happens when you start a business when you're 19 and you just can't think of a name. Name it after yourself. So I just want to thank you so much for all the good work that you're doing in the world. It's so refreshing. And honestly, I don't know how long it's going to take me to process the information that you just shared with me, but it's so exciting to know that this work is happening. And, in response to that, I think it's like 67% of the new fabrics that are made in this world today are polyester.
Yeah.
So, the statistics that I hold in my head are, the textile industry is the second most polluting industry after oil and gas. Well, it is the oil and gas industry in that realm, right? Polyester is created by fossil fuels, so closely tied together. I think that it's time now that we are, and not something that we're trying to do, but we are actually doing such good work that it's coming apart. People are realizing it. People are becoming aware of the greenwashing. People are able to disseminate like what is actually helpful and what is actually designed for a money-making endeavor by big corporations that are not really with the best interest of the planet in mind. And with that, I just want to say that I'm sure that both of you are aware of Yvon Chouinard's recent change of ownership in Patagonia, and how just the leadership that we are witnessing in our our arena, our segment of consumerism is just, it's so encouraging, right? Like to see that, Yvon Chouinard just gave his $8 billion company to a trust that will nurture the environment. And he wrote down his only shareholder is the earth. How do you like that, Jeff Bezos? Just to lead the way in that way is just, what an American hero. That guy's an American hero. And I just want to celebrate that and have, that awareness that he is shining out to the world around us brings people to people like us, right? Like they need, what do you mean it needs to change? Oh, okay, it needs to change. How do we change it? With following Around the World in 80 Fabrics, with listening to this podcast and being exposed to people who have answers, right? And, biomechanical fabrics, you guys, oh my gosh, yes, please. So thank you so much. Is there anything you'd like to share in closing before we head out into the wild blue yonder in the rest of our days?
Well, I'll just add real quick, and then Tierney, I'll let you close out. One of the things where we did for the Smithsonian exhibition in particular was we felt like, well, this is great, but we can't go out and buy all this stuff, and we can't replace everything in our wardrobe, and we can't do these things that we feel like cost money or time, and we just don't have it. And so we came up with about 10 things. And of course, I don't have the list right in front of me, but it was anything from basically things we can start doing today. Buy less, right? Don't go buy something today. Mend something that you have. Wash it less frequently. Don't wash it after every time that you've worn it. Hang it to dry. Wash it on cold water. Tierney, what else am I forgetting?
Use gentle detergents, and you can also put a filter on your washing machine, and your dry. Make sure you keep your lint filters dry, because 3 times more microfibers are released out of your dryer than your washing machine. So hang drying is really does make a difference. But keeping that lint filter, and having doing your research and getting the filters in on your washing is really important. So we can make all these changes in how our relationship with our clothes, so that we do respect them more, because they are a source of pollution. But each one of us can make a change. And then when we do buy something, it may cost a little bit more if you buy something that's not a fast fashion item, but it's going to have such a larger effect in terms of helping people, and it comes with a story, and it's probably better made, so that price may actually even out in the long run. It certainly will for the planet. So we're just hoping that this project, and like what you're doing, Crispina, and what Selvage is doing, is to cast a new light on our clothing as a really powerful source of good, and a way of not only expressing our personal creativity and our amazing inventiveness, but also a way to give back to the planet, and work in harmony with all the natural cycles that have made us who we are as a species. So
that's beautiful. I am so glad that we had this time to talk, and I got to learn all of this wealth of inspiration and optimism and just forward thinking from both of you. Thank you so much for your time today. And thank you for listeners out there in podcast land. And go to the show notes page, learn more about these women and their project, and sign up for their emails. And let's make this really successful and publicly available to people who need it. So the more people that we can kind of jumping on the bandwagon, the more successful we will all be working together.
Thank you.
Thank you so much, Crispina. We appreciate you having us on.
Yeah, been delightful.
Hey, so I'm over here and I'm serving you a giant air hug because you just finished another episode of the Rags to Riches Textile Upcycling Podcast. Thank you for being with me. Our music is provided by The Lucky Five. Learn more about them at thelucky5.com. Our show is produced and edited by Vandal Hyacinth. If you want to dive in deep, head over to Rags to Riches Textile Upcycling Podcast.com.